Play ball. Hot off the press, handicappers from Wager Talk, SportsMemo, and the Gold Sheet have collaborated on the 2023 Wager Talk Media MLB Betting Guide. From World Series odds to regular season win totals and everything in between, this year's betting guide features previews on all 30 teams, all 6 divisions, and season-long awards like the Cy Young, MVP, and Rookie of the Year. Each preview contains key roster acquisitions and departures to help you get up to speed before opening day. Visit wt.buzz/MLB23 to download your free guide, and we'll see you in the batter's box.
Happy Monday, everyone, and welcome to the NBA Triple Double Show. Our fearless leader, Ronald Cabang, is not with us today, but I am joined by my good friend and partner, Jeff Michaels. And as usual, we will be going over 3 games with 2 people, so it's true NBA Triple Double fashion today. But before we get into that, however, we do have some promos to go over that are special at this point in time of the year. Right now for the NBA Triple Double Show, now until the end of the NBA playoffs, you can use code NBA17. That is NBA17, once again, $179 for now until the end of the playoffs. That is a great deal. You're going to get accustomed to a lot of the people who are on the NBA Triple-Double Show, how they attack games. And again, you're not going to be focused on 1, 2, 3 plays. You're going to have us till the end of the season. And guys, the playoffs are the best time to bet in the NBA. That's when minutes are secured, usage, volume, opportunity, effort, everything is far better in the playoffs, so very much looking forward to that. Today, however, today is $9 Monday, so all packages are $9, and one-day passes only $17, so definitely check that out as well. And, of course, I have to mention my good friend and partner, Jeff Michaels. He is the $2 Tuesday handicapper over at SportsMemo and Wager Talk, so make sure to grab his play this Tuesday, again, only $2. And once again, something new this week. All packages and one-day passes are half off on Thursdays for SportsMemo and Wager Talk. So once again, a ton of new value that we are offering everyone over at SportsMemo and Wager Talk. We're always trying to give the best deals possible. So please go and check that out. So now, let's break down this slate. It's time to call in my boy, Jeff Michaels. Jeff, I'm coming off a 5-2 NBA weekend, so feeling pretty good right now. How'd your weekend go, buddy?
Yeah, I can't complain. I'm coming off of a hot Sunday, 2-0. Got both the underdogs yesterday in college basketball. I did lose with my Golden State NBA play last night, but hey, we're talking about that Minnesota game today again. So one I got my eye on, no question.
Yeah, we're always targeting the Kings game. The fastest pace, the highest total. We'll get to that eventually, but right now we're going to talk about the Mavericks and the Pacers. This is a -1 spread and a 234 over-under. And in this spot, both Tyrese Halliburton and Miles Turner are game-time decisions, so definitely something you have to keep an eye on. And then Chris Duarte, coming off of the bench, he is out as well. As for the Mavericks, Luka Doncic will be forced to sit in this spot due to the fact that he got his 16th technical foul last night. So it's basically going to be Kyrie versus all once again. And this is a spot for the Dallas Mavericks. They have lost 4 games in a row. They are in desperate need of a win. They are still in playoff positioning. And as for the Pacers, yes, they have somewhat of a playoff outlook. Maybe, just maybe they could make it, but I don't really think that's what they're going for. What do you think, Jeff? What side are you going with in this spot? Are you going with a total or something along those lines?
Yeah, I do think it's an interesting game. Ron and I, and as well as you, talk a lot of trends and angles aspects on these games, and there's a lot of competing trends here, in my opinion, especially even on Dallas's side alone. They really play down to the potential and then play down to the level of their opponent, I think. And it kind of stands out with their ATS numbers. I mean, they're just 8-23 against the spread, facing teams under 500, and they're losing those games straight up on average. But they're 15-5 against the spread off an upset loss as a road favorite in the last 3 years. And they're 30-18 in a same season revenge situation. So, Dallas isn't a team that I love to back on the road And there are a couple things that do tell me to support Indy. I mean, especially being a home underdog. And they're pretty good at home with the rest advantage. They're 6-3, but they started the season 6-0, and now they've dropped three straight against the spread. And I do find it hard in this situation to back a team that, like you said, doesn't have a whole lot to play for. I mean, Indiana does have a shot, like you mentioned, but I think I'd be looking at the total here. I mean, I'm kind of questioning where the offense is going to come from on Dallas, especially with Doncic being out. Kyrie could be looking to score, obviously, but he's also going to be the main distributor, I think. But I wouldn't love backing either side in this situation. I would probably be leaning towards the Pacers, but I'd probably be looking at the under, kind of questioning where the offense is going to come from in this game, despite the pace of Indiana.
Yeah, Jeff, I'm with you in all aspects of this game. This is one of those matchups where I just need more information. When it comes to the Pacers, if I knew Tyrese Halliburton and Miles Turner were going to play, I would back the Pacers here. It's about a pick'em spot, so I feel comfortable going with the Pacers. But then again, in the back of your mind, you're like, okay, how hard are they going to play? Do they even want to try and make the playoffs? Would they rather just kind of pack it in, get the best draft pick possible, and move forward into next season? So for me, again, kind of like you said, it is a tough spot. I like that you brought up the under as well, because once again, Luka will not be playing in this matchup. It's going to be Kyrie essentially doing it all. And Kyrie is one of those players who's fully capable of going off in terms of points, in terms of facilitating, a little bit of everything, but I just don't know who chips in. They have Tim Hardaway Jr., who, is solid, but he's a very up and down guy. They have Christian Wood, who's also somewhat of an up and down guy. So they do have some weapons, but are they going to show up? There's a lot going on in the media with the Dallas Mavericks right now. So it's not really a team or a game in general that I want to put my money on, unless it is, because to your point, I'm not exactly sure where these points are from. But my best bet is from this game. I do have a look from this game that I really do enjoy, so we'll get to that a little later. And now we're going to get to what is probably the marquee matchup of the Monday NBA slate, and that's going to be the Philadelphia 76ers and the Denver Nuggets. Right now, the Denver Nuggets are a -5.5 spread at home, and this game has a 228 over-under to go with it. And once again, I'm really excited for this game because we have the two top MVP candidates facing off with Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic. And at this point in time, Joel Embiid is a -145 favorite to win the NBA MVP, and Jokic is close behind with +195. So I do think this is going to be a game where both Jokic and Embiid really come to play. Joel Embiid does have a questionable tag or a game time decision next to his name at this point in time, but I don't see any chance Joel Embiid does not suit up for this game. His point total over under is 35.5 in this spot. He's just absolutely been going crazy. James Harden is still questionable as well. There is a chance he suits up, but I don't think so personally, just with the spot that it is. I think we'll continue to see the Tyrese Maxey, the DeAndre Melton and stuff, and Shake Milton coming off the bench to fill that point guard role. Sorry, Jeff, I just started rolling. I'm going to roll into this one, and then we'll go to you next. But yeah, again, in this spot as well for the Denver Nuggets, Michael Porter Jr. is also a game time decision, which is actually a bigger factor than I think a lot of people believe. This is a Philadelphia 76ers team getting 5.5 points in a spot where, they're coming off a loss against the Phoenix Suns, and they're going to want to get this game, especially go out and get this for Joel Embiid. And, if you've been watching anything in the media as well with Joel Embiid, he's been kind of hinting at the fact that Nikola Jokic has been stat stuffing. So I would not be surprised if this is a matchup that Joel Embiid takes personal. He wants to try and take it to Nikola Jokic. Do I think the 76ers are going to win this spot on the road? No, not really, but are they capable of it? Yeah, 100%. They are a team that is talented enough to go out on the road and face a team like the Denver Nuggets and win. But not really the spot that I'm looking, due to the fact that the Denver Nuggets are 31-6 straight up at home this season and 23-13-1 when against the spread. As for the 76ers, they're also a team that is very solid on the road. They're 23-14 when on the road, and they are 20-17 when on the road against the spread. So So once again, a very close spot. I do think this is a 76ers team that can keep this close. 5.5 points is 3 possessions. So for me, I would actually back the 76ers here. And I think this is going to be a really fun matchup to watch. If you want to make a same game parlay with Joel Embiid, maybe 30 plus, 10 rebounds, then go on and do a Nikola Jokic 20 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists. I think that's pretty viable tonight. And I bet you could get at least plus 100, plus 150 odds, somewhere in that range. So that's something that I would personally go and check out. But for me, I'd be with the 76ers here with the plus 5.5. And Jeff, what are you thinking for this one?
You know, I'm thinking I might have to go bet that same game parlay is kind of what I'm thinking off the rip. But, this is definitely an interesting matchup. I think the last one, like I kind of mentioned, there were angles and trends that kind of pointed you towards both or away from both sides, excuse me, I should say. And in this game, I think it's almost the opposite. That I found so much that made me support either one of the teams, if not both, that almost makes me want to stay away. I will say that I am leaning towards the dog. I think in any situation where that is the case, it is a good argument that it's going to be a close game. It's going to be a hard fought game, and it's not going to be a game that's going to be a blowout on either side. So in that situation, I would be leaning towards the dog. But you look at it, Philly, they're off back-to-back straight up and ATS losses. They're 6-1 against the spread this year off back-to-back straight up losses. And they're 10-4 ATS this season against teams that are winning at least 60% of their games. So they're playing good against good teams. They're playing good off a loss. They're not losing multiple in a row. And straight up, they're 18-4 after allowing their opponent to shoot 50% or better from the field. So definitely not doing, not having the same negative kind of effect on the defense in consecutive games. But then obviously Denver, I mean, one stat pretty much says it all. They're 31-6 on their home court straight up. So they've covered a good majority of those games. They're 23-13 against the spread, but they're 13-1 straight up and 11-3 against the spread at home versus teams with a winning record. So, against nearly any other opponent, Philly's playing anybody else in this situation and they're on the road. No question, I'm back in Philly. Denver's playing pretty much any other team and they're at home in this situation. No question, I'm back in Denver. But I think in this one, it is kind of difficult. One thing that really did stand out to me, though, despite the fact that I mentioned I would be siding probably with Philly, Denver is one of the best rebounding teams in the league, at least in terms of rebounding differential. They're plus 2.6 rebounds per game, which is 4th in the league. They're 7-3-1 against the spread this season, revenging a loss that they got out rebounded. And they're 5-1-1 at home. So not only did they lose the last matchup against Philly, Philly also out rebounded them in that game, and they don't let that happen twice. So it does hold me back a little bit, but no question, especially if Harden's in, I'm going with the dog in this one. If you're asking me to, pick a side, and I'm going with Philly too.
Yeah, 100%. If James Harden is in, then I would for sure be backing Philadelphia. And I think another good look, and me and you talked about this before the show, is Nikola Jokic triple-double. It's gotten back up to around plus 145. And, I do understand that he's going against Joel Embiid and rebounding might be a little more difficult than typical. Maybe the assists might be a little more difficult because the Philadelphia 76ers are solid defensively. But at plus 145 for Nikola Jokic in a spot where you would expect him to take it a little personally, want to go out and get it, want to get every board that he can. You would assume his teammates want to make those shots for him as well, because again, this game could be pretty pivotal into the MVP race. So I do think Nikola Jokic triple-double at plus 145 is a pretty good look as well.
Yeah, Matt, last thing I'll throw in there, sorry, but yeah, before we jump onto the third, the last thing, regardless of what side you do like in this one, if you're leaning Philly, I would probably get on it now. I don't foresee this line going any more in Denver's direction. Not saying it goes too much in Philly's direction unless Harden gets ruled in. But, I would say, yeah, if you're leaning Philly, if you're leaning dog, jump on it now. If you like, if you like Denver, if you like the favorite in this situation, you can probably sit on it for a little bit. You may even get better value, especially, obviously if you still like them with Harden playing in the game as well. So.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because when I looked at this line last night when it was at 5.5, I probably looked at it around midnight, and that was my first thought. I was like, wow, this is a little higher than I initially anticipated. And if you do like Denver, I think as game time closes in, again, with someone like Joel Embiid, with a team like the Philadelphia 76ers, I do think that's where a lot of the money very well could go. So it could bring it back down if you do like the Nuggets. So I think that's a very good point by Jeff there as well. But moving on to the last game of the day, and of course, we got to talk about the Sacramento Kings because this one is the Minnesota Timberwolves traveling on the road to face off against the Kings. This is a -4 spread for Sacramento at this point in time, and the over-under is 239 to go with it. So you hear that, that's a game I am definitely targeting in this spot. And, the Minnesota Timberwolves travel on the road to face off against the Kings. And the Minnesota Timberwolves, after beating the Warriors last night, are currently on a game win streak. And as for the Kings, they have won 2 games in a row and have done so without De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox, he was our best bet on Friday. Sadly, he had 19 points in 20 minutes, went down with that hamstring injury, and he is questionable coming into this matchup. Personally, when you're looking at a hamstring injury, it's such a naggy injury. You generally want to proceed with caution. So I don't think De'Aaron Fox will play in this matchup personally. But, like we've said before, this is a Kings team that has backups like Davion Mitchell. Kevin Huerter can handle the basketball. Domantas Sabonis can just handle it a little bit more. So I think they're fully capable of moving on and beating this Minnesota Timberwolves team without him. As for the Timberwolves, they're fully healthy in this matchup. Karl Anthony Towns, I am wondering if he's going to be full go in this matchup just because it's a back-to-back, so that might be something to keep an eye on, but no injury tag next to his name at this point in time. But, Jeff, I want you to start with this one. What's your look in this spot? Are you at the Kings at home, a total, any props? What are you looking for here?
Yeah, I'm definitely leaning towards the Kings at home, but I like the total here. I mean, we talk about it all the time. I like the fast pace that we're going to see, obviously, out of the Kings. And it almost surprised me to the point that Minnesota this season, 5-0 to the over on the road, playing with no rest. So even playing with tired legs, hasn't stopped them from putting up points. They have allowed a little more as well, which has obviously helped from a total aspect. But Minnesota's 21-15 over under on the road this season, and they've gone over in 4 straight and 6 out of the last 7. And then you have a Sacramento team that, we could probably talk for an hour in itself about why the Sacramento team could, potentially go over the total just even themselves alone. But, Sacramento, these two teams have face off relatively frequently. All 5 of the meetings in the last 3 years that have been played in Sacramento have gone over the total. Sacramento's gone over in 4 out of their last 5, and they're 24-13 to the over at home this year. And they're 5-0-1 to the over in their last 6 against opponents without rest. So they've averaged more points than normal. They're taking advantage of the tired legs. And they're 24-9-2 over under in the last 35 at home. You break that down, their average combined scores of those games are over 245 points, and they're 14-4 to the over against conference opponents at home. They're putting up over 247 combined points. So even with a little bit of wiggle room there, I am normally honestly looking at least towards Sacramento over the total. And in this situation, you got a Minnesota team that only supports that. So I do like the over in this game, and that's definitely the way I would be looking here as opposed to this side.
Yeah, I definitely think that over is a good look as well. Last night when the T-Wolves faced the Warriors, that was a very low-scoring game. It's kind of some odd spots. Guys like Jaden McDaniels had, I think, like 10 minutes and 5 fouls. I don't know if he ended up fouling out, but I know he struggled mightily. And he's someone who's been playing very good basketball up until this point in time. And, Karl Anthony Towns coming back as well. He can definitely produce some points because these two teams are a very interesting matchup. And personally, I do side with the Sacramento Sacramento Kings with the -4, and it's very similar to kind of how I always explain the Kings. The Kings offense and pace is just so tough to keep up with that teams can keep up with it for a half or for 3 quarters, or even make it to the fourth quarter, and it's a close game. And if they even make it to that fourth quarter, the Kings are actually one of the best defending fourth quarter teams throughout the entire NBA. So I know throughout the game they're ranked around 25th or 26th, but actually once it hits the fourth quarter, they are actually a top 10 defensive team. So, and I think that's why this Kings team is able to separate so well down the stretch in games. And you take a look at the makeup of these two teams. You take a look at the Minnesota Timberwolves. They have Rudy Gobert, who's absolutely enormous. He's going to get a lot of rebounds in this spot. Then you have Karl Anthony Towns at the 4. But what that does is it's tough to get up and down the court with guys like that. It takes time. So if the Kings get a lead or they get out and run, I think it's going to be really hard for this Minnesota Timberwolves team to keep up in the long run, because they do have Anthony Edwards back now, and that's a big thing. And you also have to sit there and wonder, how are all these big names going to come in and adjust to each other? Generally, it takes a couple games. This is also a Minnesota Timberwolves team who's won 3 games in a row on the road, mind you. So I do think this is a team that's also overperformed on the road a little bit. I know they've been playing good basketball, but it's tough in the NBA to go out on the road and win 3 NBA road games in a row. And then in addition to that, they're playing the Kings here, and on Wednesday, they travel on the road again to go out and face the Phoenix Suns. So they have a look-ahead spot to the Phoenix Suns as well. And this is a Kings team who has played very well at home all season long. They're 23-15 straight up at home, and in terms of against the spread, not nearly as good with 18, 19, and 1, but this is still a Timberwolves team who is also 18 and 19 on the road against the spread as well. So pretty even right there. And all in all, I just think this Kings team is going to be too tough for a Timberwolves team that is bringing names back into a lineup right now, at this point in time. That generally does not mean wins. It takes a couple games. Kind of getting that consistency back together, getting that synergy, things like that. So for me, I like the look of the Kings here. I have not made this an official play. Honestly, a lot of the games on this slate are kind of tougher to make official plays today. I just can kind of see each one going either way. One game I was actually looking at was the Knicks and the Rockets, just because I think the Rockets are doing the tank right now. But this is going to be a fun game to watch. Again, taking a look at the total, a lot of points scored here. Always good for player props and stuff like that. And Jeff, wanted to ask you before we get on to the best bet section, with this Kings game, were there any props that you were potentially taking a look at?
Yeah, I think you kind of made 2 good points that'll play into the fact that, it is harder for them to move up the court. And you take into effect that Karl Anthony Towns, is playing on the second leg of a back-to-back. That could be even more of an issue for this team to get up and down the court. But with that being said, I double checked some of the stat numbers because we were talking about this game from last night. I was actually looking at Karl Anthony Towns' rebounds last night potentially, and then Rudy Gobert comes out last night and gets 18 rebounds out of the 23 that they had combined. So Towns only put up 5 boards last night. I think a back-to-back night, Towns coming off of some injuries, I very well could be looking at Gobert rebounds again tonight if his minutes are going to be up and Towns needs some time to recoup. He got the job done last night. I think he can get it done again tonight, to be honest.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there, because with Karl Anthony Towns, I would assume he still gets some run, but it would be tough for me to see him getting like a full run, like 30 plus minutes, 32, whatever that may be. So I do think a Gobert would be a good look there. And then one thing that I tend to run with Domantas Sabonis is anytime that he is matched up with a big body center, someone that's going to be difficult for him to back down, I tend to look at his assists a little more, because that's exactly what happens when Sabonis is backing someone down. He's pivoting back and forth. He's generally looking around that 3-point line for someone to find as well. And someone that's going to be able to hold him a little bit is going to be Gobert. Gobert is bigger than him. He's a bigger body than him as well, longer arms. So Sabonis could have a little more difficulty backing down and getting to the basket. And because of that, I might take a look at those assists a little more for tonight's Kings game as well.
So where do you think, for my curiosity, Matt, where do you look then with no De'Aaron Fox scoring? Where is he going?
Herder.
You attacking Barnes, Herder?
Yeah, I would take a look at Kevin Herter. Harrison Barnes is one of those guys who definitely plays good at home. He's one of those guys that, he's been more consistent this year as well. Like I remember when I'd make same game parlays for him last year and I'd click his name for 10 points. I'd be like, oh shit, man, I don't know about this. But now he's pretty secure with the 10. Usually my go-to with him is 10 points, 3 rebounds. And that's a pretty good piece for a same game parlay lineup. And he's been very, very consistent with that. So I do like that. I like to look at Kevin Herter just because he's such a spark plug. And dude, Keegan Murray has been very nice. And he's one of those guys too, where like I expect him to fall off. I expect him to have a couple bad games in a row. And he just keeps making shots. He's a really good 3-point guy. Malik Monk coming off that bench. I just love this Kings team. I could talk about them all day. But they have shooters. So for me, I do like that look of Domantas Sabonis. I really, with the assists. And honestly, the triple-double could be flirty as well. It's going to be a spot where the ball is going to be in his hands a lot tonight.
That one's going to hurt if we see a Sabonis triple-double tonight. But hey, I'll hope for it.
Yes, for those who don't know, Jeff's best bet Friday was Domantas Sabonis. I believe he came 1 rebound short, 1 assist short. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right.
9-9.
It's close. It was right there.
He's due.
Today,
He's due.
He is due. You're right there. But today, though, the best bets are going to have a little better fortune. Jeff missed by an assist and a rebound. De'Aaron Fox got hurt midway through the game for me. So for me, I'll start us off with the best bets. And we're going back to that Pacers and Mavericks game, okay? And we're going to be looking at Kyrie Irving over 6.5 assists, which is plus 100 right now. And the reason I like this is because Kyrie Irving and the Dallas Mavericks are facing off against the Indiana Pacers. As many of us know, the Indiana Pacers are one of the fastest teams in all of basketball, while also being one of the worst defensively. In addition to that, one key thing that I really do enjoy tonight is the fact that Luka Doncic is actually out in this matchup. I like it because what Luka does in a lot of the games is he loves posting up. He loves backing down. He loves running a lot of isolation basketball where his back is to the basket and then he's facilitating out of that post-up game. Now they're not going to have that. So with Kyrie, the pace in this game really speeds up. And don't get me wrong, I would also love to see Tyrese Halliburton in this game because I think Tyrese Halliburton speeds up the game on the other side for Kyrie. But I think this is going to be one of those spots where the Dallas Mavericks don't have that many scores. So the Pacers are going to be forced to look to Kyrie to try and potentially come up and trap him, double him, whatever it may be. And Kyrie is such a good ball handler that he's able to split those traps and find open teammates, okay? So, and I also think this is a great game where, Kyrie came out and talked to the press about himself and Luka and how there's other players on the team who essentially need to perform. And he wasn't derogatory about it. He was essentially just stating a fact. And I think this is a good spot for a lot of those guys to come to play. Tim Hardaway Jr. is a good outside shooter. Christian Wood should get more minutes than last game on top of that. And I think it's a good opportunity for Kyrie to go out and get some assists. Dwight Powell had 0 points in their last game, and he's the starting center. You've got to get those guys more involved early and often. And then especially if Miles Turner is going to be out, then he'll be going up against Isaiah Jackson. And Jackson's solid, but it does ruin the depth and things of that nature. And in turn, and I do think it's going to create some better assists for Kyrie. In addition to that, this is an Indiana Pacers team who has allowed 125 points per game over their last 3. So not playing good defense at all at this point in time. And again, this is kind of a do or die situation for the Dallas Mavericks. And even if they do lose, I would assume they're going to go down swinging here. And if they go down swinging, I think a lot of it has to do with Kyrie Irving. So tonight, the best bet is going to be Kyrie Irving over 6.5 assists, which is plus 100 right now. Jeff, what are you looking at tonight for your best bet, sir?
Yeah, last couple times I've been on here, we've been talking some player props, and there were a couple looks like that caught my eye today. But I decided to go sides in this game and bring a fourth game into the swing, I guess, on the breakdown. And I'm looking at Utah tonight, getting some points against Phoenix, getting a hefty chunk of points against Phoenix, actually, which is part of the reason that it really caught my attention. I mean, regardless of the number, you look at Utah, they're 10-2 this season against the spread as a home underdog, and they're 9-0 against the spread as a home dog against teams with a winning record by a single-digit dog. So they're playing to the level, I kind of mentioned it before with Dallas in the negative sense. Now in the positive sense, this is a Utah team that really does play to the level of their opponent. They're 25-11 this season against the spread versus teams with a winning record, and they have been on a rough streak. They've lost, I believe, 3 in a row now, maybe 4 in a row. But they're 7-3 against the spread this season when they've lost at least 3 consecutive games, and they're actually winning straight up as an underdog on average. In that situation, they've covered 4 in a row, and they've covered 5 in a row as a dog in that situation. And I really just think I got questions about this Phoenix team. I mean, there's no question about the potential that this Phoenix team has. But, they took one step forward and 2 steps back, in my opinion, because you get one step forward, you get Kevin Durant, obviously a huge step forward. But then you take 2 steps back because the pieces you trade away are now playing better. And the piece that you got in return is hurt. So I don't think that Phoenix right now currently has the depth without Kevin Durant to really make a run. I think this is a Utah team that you don't underestimate at home. They could have Markkanen back tonight, which would be huge. And Ayton is questionable, I believe, as well, which is going to be a difference maker in the middle. But this is a situation that I'm going to jump on the line before, we really find out if Ayton's in, because I like Utah either way, to be honest. But if Ayton does get ruled in, I actually, we could be getting more points. Excuse me, I guess. So maybe this is a game that we sit and wait on a little bit, because if Phoenix does rule Ayton in, we could be getting an even better line. But I do like Utah in this situation. I think that the market's overvaluing Phoenix in their current situation and keeping too much of an eye on what potentially could be out of this Phoenix team at full strength. But we're not seeing them at full strength, but -6.5 against a Utah team in Utah is full strength numbers, in my opinion. So give me Utah plus the points tonight over the Suns.
Yeah, Jeff, I like that play a lot because, to your point, I think this Suns team does not have much depth right now. And I think this could be an overreaction after they beat the 76ers by 20. But that was just a Suns spot. They'd lost 5 of their last 6. I actually had the Suns as a 4-unit play, money line against the Philadelphia 76ers, and they made that one stress-free, which I appreciate. But this Jazz team, some of their young guys, like Chris Dunn, who's been running point guard for him, Ogbaji, or however you say his name, coming off there, Talen Horton-Tucker, Walker Kessler. They've had some really nice young guys, and they've been playing hard basketball. They're one of those teams that, even though they're young, they do not roll over. So I really do like that look. I think that's an interesting one, and especially if Lauri Markkanen comes in and plays.
Yeah, and Phoenix is having some issues following up with those big performances. Like you said, that big 20-point win. I'm glad you mentioned it, because one thing I forgot, they're actually 3-8 against the spread in their last 11 games when they win by 15 or more in the previous game. So they're kind of showing that those big wins that, a lot of people probably assume are them getting into their run, getting into their role, getting into the swing of things, are really actually just one-off kind of occasional wins. So it doesn't mean to back them always in the second situation. They've only covered 3 out of the 11 games to follow. So it doesn't always give you the confidence, and they're not carrying the momentum like they should out of those huge wins.
Yeah, no, 100%. And one last, I do love my player props. And one thing that I definitely looked at last night as well was Chris Paul double-double. And that is actually plus 145 against the Utah Jazz. And, I'm always kind of surprised to see these Chris Paul numbers around plus 145. And if DeAndre Ayton isn't in, it does take away some assists from Chris Paul. But he's shown he's fully capable. I believe he had a double-double 2 games ago, 13 assists. So he's very capable of getting a double-double without DeAndre Ayton. This Utah Jazz team doesn't run the best defense in the world. There's a lot of points that go scored against them. And if there's a lot of points tonight, I'm sure a lot are going to come from Chris Paul and that double-double. So I think that's an interesting look. And that's it for the show, guys. Jeff, was there anything else that you wanted to touch on? Maybe talk about some stuff going on your page, anything like that?
No, I do have one play up for Monday, but Matt mentioned it at the top of the show. Make sure you guys check back tomorrow. I got my eyes on some big plays for $2 Tuesday tomorrow. So you'll grab 3 guys for $5 too, which is an even better deal looking as we move forward in the week. So make sure you check that out tomorrow, guys.
Yes, sir. You cannot beat that deal. And as always, we greatly appreciate you stopping by the NBA Triple Double Show. We greatly miss our fearless leader in Ronald Cabang. We can't wait to have you back on Wednesday. And as always, guys, check us out over at SportsMemo. I am Moneyline Matt. This is Jeff Michaels. Thanks for stopping by. Good luck tonight, and we are out. Peace out, y'all.
Play ball. Hot off the press, handicappers from Wager Talk, Sports Memo, and the Gold Sheet have collaborated on the 2023 Wager Talk Media MLB Betting Guide. From World Series odds to regular season win totals and everything in between, this year's betting guide features previews on all 30 teams, all 6 divisions, and season-long awards like the Cy Young, MVP, and Rookie of the Year. Each preview contains key roster acquisitions and departures to help you get up to speed before opening day. Visit wt.buzz/MLB23 to download your free guide, and we'll see you in the batter's box.